Welcome to BamfordRose and another question of the week. In this week's question of the week, we look at, is it a good idea to buy a salvage or accident damaged Aston Martin? Buying an accident damaged Aston Martin, making a YouTube video about its repair seems to be all the rage at the moment. But should you consider buying an Aston Martin that has a category or salvage assigned to it? I think that cars that were assigned a category, they were uneconomic to repair, and it's just bodywork, cosmetic damage, and you've got reports to conclude that, invoices that show the repair, what parts were bought. And in the case where the damage was just entirely cosmetic, then I do think it's okay to buy those cars. But where there was an element of structural, suspension, steering, subframe damage, then those cars should be treated with real caution. So stay tuned to why I think that's the case, and let's discuss if it's a good idea to buy a salvage or accident damaged Aston Martin. As the years go by and the cars age and depreciate, and as parts prices rise, then if the car had, say, a full front end accident and you need bumper, wings, bonnet, grille, headlamps, then it's easy to see why the cost of that repair can cross the threshold of the economic to repair borderline. And because of that, it's very easy for a car that doesn't look too badly damaged to get written off. Let's say a 2006 4.3 V8 Vantage has a current market value of about £28,000. If it was to have a little bump that didn't set off the airbags, that didn't cause any suspension or structural damage, but it needed bumper, grille, headlamps, wings and bonnet, then that car is going to get written off because it is going to be uneconomic to repair. So with the front bumper at about £600, front grille at about £485, headlamps £1,300 a piece, so that's £2,600. Again, the wings are about £1,300 each, £2,600, and a bonnet about £3,500. Then with some consumables, maybe under trays, plastic wheel arch liners, depending on how serious the accident was, then that's easily going to be about £11,000 worth of parts needed to repair that car. A full front end respray probably coming in at about £2,500, maybe the labour to remove all the broken components and rebuild the car coming in at about £3,000, then with the total repair bill with VAT, with the parts, is probably going to be about £19,500. The threshold to repair, whether it's going to be economically viable or uneconomically viable to repair a car, is going to sit somewhere around the 60 to 70% mark of market value. That means at best a car with a market value of £28,000 is going to be declared uneconomically viable to repair if the parts, labour and paint exceeds £20,000. So now you can see that just with cosmetics, and it being a light accident, just being removal of all of those body parts and nothing structural, nothing suspension related, then it's very, very easy for quite a light bump to write one of these cars off. Now, as any owner will tell you, if you start accruing mileage on these cars, then they're going to get stone rashed. And in a body shop, in an Aston garage, then quite a regular repair, a regularly seen job, is a full front end respray of bumper, wings and bonnet. So if you take off those perfectly good components and do a full respray on them and put them back on the car, well, that in a sense is no difference really to taking off cracked wings and bumper from a small bump and replacing them with new parts and respraying the new parts. So that's why it's perfectly sound to purchase an accident damaged repair car where you know the damage was just bodywork and cosmetic. But if you are contemplating that car, you really want to see invoices, reports from whoever did the work, the parts bought, and you really want to see that a proper job has been done. You want that because you want to guarantee that there were absolutely no structural mechanical repair works done at the same time. You need to do that checking because the places selling accident damaged cars, these are the places that the insurance companies pass the cars on to sell, then they don't differentiate between cars that were uneconomically viable to repair from just having cosmetic damage to having some steering and suspension and component damage. If the car was classified as a category A, it must never be put back on the road. Probably it's fired its airbags off, it's got some structural damage, this car just cannot be repaired. Then you're not going to see those cars sold as a repairable option. But you do see cars for sale that have got both bodywork and some suspension damage for sale. And it's these cars that have got some structural or suspension damage that you really need to be careful, and I would say avoid buying those cars. Why do I say avoid buying those cars? Well, it's because of this reason. If the car was bought by somewhere that was going to professionally put that car back on the road, and they did all of the cosmetic repairs and they did all of the suspension, steering and structural repairs. Maybe it needed a rear subframe, a couple of wishbone arms, or maybe it needed front steering rack, front anti-roll bar, maybe a damper. It depends the type of accident. Why do I say that? Well, it's because if the car was bought by an outfit that was going to professionally, it was their commercial activity, to repair a car with some structural, suspension, steering, accident damage and some cosmetic damage, then by the time they bought the car from the salvage yard, they've bought all of the cosmetic and mechanical parts needed, they've refitted everything, they've sprayed it. Then if they look at their parts and labour bill, they look at what they bought the car for from the salvage yard, then they're not going to be able to sell that at a figure which even makes them break even. That means that if those cars are put back on the road, then it's not been done professionally, because the professional world wouldn't attempt it because it would be a loss-making activity. This is where the craze of YouTubers come in, who buy accident damage repairs and then chart their repair process. Now, one such YouTube channel, repairing an accident damaged Aston in that way, I feature here. Let's start by saying that this channel is very popular and the guy makes some good content and it's well received by the audience, so there's absolutely no issue here. The only issue is that you've got a severely damaged car that has been written off, it has been deemed uneconomic to repair, and it's not being repaired and put back on the road by a time-served engineer or someone that is qualified to repair accident damaged cars and put them back on the road. Links to the channel and the videos are in the description, and to be fair, if you watch the videos, he doesn't profess to be an engineer or know too much about mechanics and the way you go about fixing things. So it's difficult to be too critical, but at the end of the day, an accident damaged car is going to be repaired and is going to be put back on the road by someone who's not really grounded in engineering. Now, I do lots of insurance repair jobs here, and the route in the insurance world to repair this car would be a completely new corner. It would have a new wheel, it would have a new upper and lower wishbone arm, it would have a new suspension upright knuckle, and it would have a new steering rack. Now, in future videos that this guy makes, he may well find out that there's some more damage to the car and he may have to apply more parts than what he's done so far. But to fix the steering rack, all he's done is taken off the track rod end, the arm that's bent, and replace it with a new one. Now, as you can see by the bend that's in that track rod arm, the force that's gone up the steering rack is going to certainly have compromised the steering rack. I've seen this time and time again. The steering will be stiff, it'll be tight, it'll be notchy, there'll be something wrong with that steering rack. So just thinking that a new track control arm is going to put the steering system right is probably a little bit underestimating the job. Now, if this particular individual has bought the car cheap because that's all the budget can stretch to, he's going to repair it and he's going to keep it forever as his own car, then that's absolutely fine. But I do think the current trend of a load of YouTubers buying accident damaged repaired cars and putting them back on the road is like YouTubers that get done for speeding when they film themselves obviously speeding down the public highway. One day someone is going to go out and video their first drive in their accident damaged repaired car, and they're going to have an off or something down a motorway, and let's hope that no one else is involved in that accident. So where I said previously that if the damage was known to be 100% cosmetic and no mechanical, no structural components were compromised whatsoever, then perhaps if you want to buy a car with a category assigned to it, those cars are okay. If the car had any mechanical damage, then if you were considering buying that car, you really do need the repair report from whoever put that car back on the road, or else you could end up driving a DIY at-home repaired car done by someone that didn't really know exactly what they were doing. Now, as I mentioned earlier, this channel has a good audience, and I'm sure his viewers like the video that he's doing, and I'm sure that I'm going to get comments on here saying the repair's okay, you're going over the top, or the car's passed an MOT. Well, MOTs are static, they're not dynamic, and they can only test for what they can see statically and not how the car drives down the road. So an MOT these days is by no means a good reflection if a car is actually roadworthy. The clear, sound advice which is being given out here is that should you buy a car with a category of it being uneconomic to repair at some point which has been assigned to it, then if you knew that that was a 100% cosmetic, then that's okay, because that's no different than any other car taking its stone-rashed panels off, having them resprayed and putting the new ones on. You know, we've taken off some cracked panels, we've got some new ones, we've resprayed them, we've put them on. So there was no structural damage. That car is perfectly okay to buy with a category assigned to it. Now, in our workshop coming in for service and repair, I see lots of cars that have previously been assigned a category of uneconomic to repair. They're never quite the same as a straight car. You know, there'll be welding on the subframe where the lower wishbone arm has been ripped out of its bracket which is attached to the lower frame, and you can see some suspect welding on the lower subframe. Maybe I've seen a car that had a little bit of a rear end knock and it bent the lower wishbone arm, and maybe did a little bit of bodywork damage, boot lid, bumper, and that car was put back on the road, and the repairers just did the basic suspension components, the basic bodywork at the back end. But the damage that that car had, the force that was exerted through the drive shaft actually compromised the differential. And it wasn't until the owner who bought that car from it being accident repaired realised that there was some legacy still of that previous accident damage. And when you take into account that cost to put that right, always a car with a category is going to be devalued in the marketplace, then these cars really are not worth the trouble. But you can see why there are these cars in the marketplace. People buy them at what they think is a bargain price. They repair them to the bare essentials. They put them on the marketplace. They might end up making some money out of it. If people voted with their feet and just never touched cars with a category assigned to them, then instead of being repaired and put back on the road, these cars would just be sold for bits, which after their accident and after the insurance company classified them as uneconomic to repair, is really all they should have been used for, stripping and selling for parts. Hope you liked that question of the week. As always, it really helps our channel if you can subscribe, click us a like and comment about if you've had any experience of accident damaged or salvaged Aston Martins.